Hi, my name is Jake, and I am a bookish drummer. So for this video, it's going to be sort of a announcement video for a read-along that I will be hosting on my Discord and my YouTube channel starting in November. It'll be a read-along for one of my all-time favorite fantasy series, and also it'll be sort of like a why you should potentially read this if you haven't read it before. So enough beating around the bush. I'm talking about 12 Kings and Cherokee by Bradley P. Bulio, and the series is called The Song of Shattered Sand series, one of my all-time favorite fantasy series. And basically this video is just to announce that I will be doing a read-along for this, and it will be hosted by me on my Discord server, the Bookish Drummer Discord. And essentially what we're going to be doing is starting with 12 Kings and Cherokee in November, and then from that point we'll just be reading one book a month. And it's a 6-book series. It's completed, so that's already bonus points for that. So definitely if you're interested in this book or the series as a whole, or if you've started the series but never completed it, like me, I haven't really finished the series yet. I've read the first 4 books, and it's, like I said, it's a 6-book series. So if you're interested in starting it or finishing it, come join us. We'll be reading 12 Kings and Cherokee, which is book 1, in November, and then from that point on, 1 book a month. So if you're interested, go check out the Bookish Drummer Discord. I'll link that down below, and we'll have buddy reads for all of the books, and it'll be a great time. So it is a 6-book series, like I said, and I'll show off all of my books here. So you got book 1, which is 12 Kings and Cherokee, and then you've got book 2 with Blood Upon the Sand, very cool cover there. And then you've got book 3, A Veil of Spears. You've got book 4, which is the last book that I've finished, Beneath the Twisted Trees. And then you've got book 5, when jackals storm the walls. And then you've got book 6, the final book, A Desert Torn Asunder. I really like all of the titles in this book series. Well, let me know what y'all think, because I think this series has some of the best book titles. Also, it has additional optional novellas, and I've only read the first one, which is of Sand and Malice Made, which is actually a prequel novella that takes place before book 1. I really did enjoy this one, but it also has, I think, 5 additional novellas. I have the paperback versions. I think the Kindle versions are very cheap. They're like a couple bucks each. So if you're interested in any of these, and also the titles for these are very cool too. You've got The Doors at Dusk and Dawn, In the Village Where Bright Wine Flows, The Flight of the Whisper King, A Wasteland of My God's Own Making, and The Tattered Prince in the Demon Veiled. All these titles are super cool. What do you guys, I think they're super cool. What do you guys think? But again, these are all like additional novellas that take place in between all of these books. I still have to figure out where they all fit in the series, but I'm definitely going to be interested when I go back and reread the first 4 books, figuring out where these go and just getting more information about this series. I think that'll be a lot of fun. But it's probably time that I try to sell you guys on this series and why it's one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, and why you guys could potentially read it, or why you should potentially read it. So if you don't know what 12 Kings and Cherokee is about, it's mainly about this girl named Chada. I think she's like 19 or 20 when the story starts, and it's essentially her revenge tale, trying to get revenge on the 12 Kings and Cherokee and what they did to her in the past, and just her revenge story basically. And it's really good. So if you do like a strong female heroine in your story and you love revenge tales, I think you would really enjoy this. There's also a great sense of like unique world building. I've never really quite read a series like this. If you couldn't tell, it's definitely a desert setting, which I've never really read a fantasy series where the desert setting is like the main setting. I've read series where there is like desert settings, like A Song of Ice and Fire has Dorne, right? But most of the story takes place in like Winterfell, King's Landing, right? But not much of it is like in a desert setting. Whereas this, it's basically all desert, and it's very fun to get very interesting and unique world building that I don't really get in a lot of other fantasy series. It also has one of my favorite trope, well, maybe not a trope, but one of my favorite storytelling techniques in it is somewhat non-linear. Like, you've got the main part of the story that takes place in present time, but you also get flashbacks from Cheetah's perspective about her childhood and her upbringing and what happened to her. And I think that's really brilliant how Bradley P. Polio does that. And like I said, you get most of the story in this first book through Cheetah's perspective. I think she probably has like about 50 or maybe a little bit less, 50% of the chapters in this book that are from her perspective. But you do get other perspectives. You get the perspective of Imre, who is her best friend, and you know, they grew up together, and he's definitely a big part of this series. He's a really great character. You also get a chapter perspective from one of the kings, and that's very interesting, and you definitely get a lot of interesting world building stuff with him. And then there's some other people that come into place. I don't want to necessarily spoil y'all for that, but they're also very interesting. And also another reason why this series just has a very interesting flair is that there are definitely horror elements in this book. There's definitely a horror element, which again, I don't want to necessarily spoil, but it has to do with a certain creature that comes out at night during a certain time of year. And it's very creepy and very cool, very unique. I keep using the word unique. For me, it's definitely one of the more unique fantasy stories I've ever read. That could be just because I haven't really read too much fantasy like a lot of my friends have. Like, I know Andrew and Nico have read a ton of fantasy. But for me, it's definitely one of the most unique fantasy books and series that I've read. So hopefully y'all are getting a sense of why I like this series and why I like this author. He's very good, and hopefully y'all will join me for the read along. Also, another reason that could convince y'all is that this is sort of like a superficial reason, but the books, you know how you sometimes get fantasy series that like the more you get into it, or the further you get into the series, like the books just get chunkier and chunkier. It's kind of the exact opposite with this series. Like, you've got the first book, and my paperback copy, it's about 600 pages. I think actually the longest book is book 2, and that's just about 700 pages with Blood Upon the Sand. But actually after that, the books get shorter, which is pretty interesting. Like Veil of Spears, you go back to it being about a 600-page book. And then with book 4, which again is the last book that I've read in the series, is about 600 pages as well. And then, ironically enough, books 5 and 6 in the series, which I haven't read yet, are the shortest. Yeah, so book 5 and book 6, they're actually much shorter than the rest of the series. So the further you get into the series, you're not going to deal with like 1,000-page tomes, right? Like, every time you read a Stormlight book, it just gets longer, or a Song of Ice and Fire. But with these books, they actually get shorter. So there's another reason. And also the novellas. I haven't read any of these 5 novellas that I was talking about, but they're all very short. They're all either just under 100 pages or just over 100 pages. They're very, very short and probably very quick to get through. And like I said, I think they're all on Kindle for like a couple bucks each. The paperbacks were like $8 each, and they're one of my favorite fantasy series, so I decided to go ahead and pick them up. But yeah, they're all very short, and the series gets shorter and shorter as it goes along. So there's another reason. Also, another fun thing about the series is, you know that feeling when you read a book in a series and then you kind of wait too long and you're like, what the hell even happened in that book? Well, the author provides book summaries for all of the books at the beginning of the later books. I think it starts on like book 4, and he like goes and recaps the previous books, so that when you go to read book 4, 5, 6, you'll get a recap of like what happened in the series. So that's another fun little detail. Also, I probably should have mentioned this about Shada. Like I said, she is a very strong female character, and she's actually a pit fighter. So you definitely get a lot of very cool action scenes in this book. And like I said, her goal is to like take out and get revenge on all of the kings in Cherokee. So there is a lot of great action scenes in this series as well. The audiobooks are great as well for any of my audiophiles out there. The first 3 books are narrated by a really good narrator, and I can't remember her name. I'll put it up here if I can find it. But then books 4 through 6 are actually narrated by Kate Reading, and you probably recognize that name from such stuff as like Stormlight and Wheel of Time. Very well regarded audiobook narrator. So if you do like Kate Reading, she does narrate books 4 through 6 in the series. So if you're a big audiophile, all of the audiobooks are great. I own all of them, and I'll definitely be listening to them during the read along. So yeah, that's sort of a summary of all of the reasons that I love this series, and I love Bradley P. Beaulieu's writing, and hopefully y'all will join me for the read along. I will be doing this read along even if it's just by myself, but hopefully a lot of y'all will come join me over on the Discord. I know a bunch of people have already said that they're interested in reading it with me as well, so please feel free to join the Discord server and come join us in November. After, of course, the Stephen King readathon is over. November is probably going to be fantasy filled because I'm reading a lot of Stephen King at the moment, and I know I'm going to be reading a lot of thrillers. So November will be a lot of fun to just jump back into fantasy. So if y'all are interested, come join the server, and in November we'll be reading 12 Kings in Cherokee, and then, December with Blood Upon the Sand, January, A Veil of Spears, February, Beneath the Twisted Trees, I can count, March, When Jackals Storm the Walls, and then we'll end in April with A Desert Torn Asunder. And it'll be a lot of fun for me to actually read the conclusion to the series. Yeah, and then, like I said, the novellas are optional. You've got Of Sand and Malice Made, which is a prequel novella. And then you've got all of these novellas, which I'm not going to read all of them again, the titles, but they take place, randomly in between all of the books. So that'll be a lot of fun to actually read that, having already read the series. So yeah. Please let me know if you're interested in the read along down in the comments below. It'll be a lot of fun if we can get a lot of people interested in one of my all-time favorite fantasy series. So please come join the Discord server. Please join the Discord server. And if you're already in the Discord server, come join us, especially if you haven't read the series. My plan is just to get a bunch of people hooked on the series, and yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely a little different than what I normally do, but if you're interested, come join us. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and the Discord. Man, what is wrong with me? The Discord server. Come check that out if you haven't already. And my Patreon, check that out. And my Amazon wishlist if you'd like to buy me a book. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and have a fantastic doodly day. Yeah.